this is day 2 of me shooting content unscripted. Maybe I should call it Korede Unscripted. This wasn't intended to be like a series or anything, but I've decided to challenge myself and see how far I can go shooting videos every day. Actually, maybe I should give myself a goal. The first thing that comes to my mind is 100 days, but 100 days is a lot. Yeah, 100 days is a lot. I do not want to commit to that, and that's one thing that I do not wanting to commit to goals that seem way too big, because I guess I'm afraid to not hit those goals. I'll figure out what number I want to do, hopefully maybe by tomorrow. But anyways, I'm already making changes. Today I'm not using my webcam, I'm using my phone, which I think looks better. I tried to get my camera charged up yesterday, but for some reason it's not charging. I haven't used it in such a long time. Maybe the batteries are just completely gone and I need to replace them, or maybe there's something else going on. I don't know, but I will try my other camera and see. I need to charge those batteries as well. But anyways, this is day 2, and the thing on my mind is this: there are people who are fine being a specialist at one thing, like they don't mind doing one thing their whole lives, and they're perfectly fine there. They just want to go deeper and deeper and deeper and become experts in that. The doctors, engineers, whatever, there's so many fields with specialists, and people like that, a lot of people like that do not mind like just working for someone their entire lives. I mean, think of our parents' generation. A lot of people spends their entire lives working in civil service. One thing I always knew I was never ever gonna do, because that's just the opposite of my vibe. And then there are people who optimize for freedom. Like, the number one thing is freedom over everything else. These are the ones who become freelancers. They're the ones who become entrepreneurs. And yes, a lot of freelancers and entrepreneurs also just like to specialize. You have the cinematographers, you have even operators, like people who just want to be a COO at whatever company, starting their own companies. Well, CEOs, COOs, I guess. But anyways, you get what I mean. Those people optimize for freedom. And then there are people who are a blend of both. They want to specialize. They don't mind working for people, but they also want their freedom. And thankfully for technology, there are lots of opportunities now for people like that to find their space. Maybe you work fractionally, meaning that even as a COO, you can work for different companies. As a COO, you can work fractionally as a chief of staff. You can work fractionally as a CTO, CFO, whatever it is. So there's really no limit to that. It's kind of like, I don't know, like to say maybe the next level from freelancing, or kind of like a mix of both freelancing and like part-time work or full-time work or something. And then there are people who, well, people like to call them the generalists. You're the person who, you're talented, right? But you do not like to be boxed in to just do one thing. You cannot imagine a life where you have to do one thing for the rest of your life. That would be like death to you. And I mean, all of the different things that you do, you excel at them, and you just always like to take on the next challenge, a new challenge. Now, amongst generalists, there are some who lean more toward the entrepreneur side of things, optimize for freedom, you don't want to work for anybody, whatever that is. And there are some who are perfectly fine, perfectly happy working for people. In fact, that's where they thrive. They would rather not have to deal with all the trouble and all the chaos of starting their own business and having to manage their own business and all of that. And for the longest time, we have been told that you have to specialize. Even on social media, we're told that, oh, you have to niche down for you to get your audience or whatever it is. But now, especially with AI becoming so prevalent, now is like the best time to be a generalist. It's like time for generalists to shine, because with AI, you can supercharge pretty much everything that you're doing. This is not an AI evangelism video or anything, but this video is to say that if you've always felt stuck or you always felt confused or less appreciated because you're a generalist and you lean more toward being a generalist. Okay, so there was that break in transmission because the memory on my phone is full, and as I was deleting stuff, I found that my kid had recorded this like 28-minute video of pretty much nothing, just her feet and I don't know what else. But anyways, that will explain the shifts in background and stuff. I wanted it to be one take, but obviously not. Anyways, getting back into it, now is a good time to be a generalist, and I can get into this a bit more later. But look out for those opportunities where you can excel as a generalist and you don't necessarily have to be boxed in. And it's going to be different for everybody depending on what field you're in. But one particular role that has been on my radar for a while is the chief of staff role. It is one role where, regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of your skill sets, I think there's a chief of staff role for everybody who has or who is able to reach a certain level. And even in terms of levels, there are much more junior chief of staff roles that someone who is like mid-career can get into, but you're really not going to know what's out there until you start looking. And if you're a curious person, curious as I am, then you're going to research chief of staff roles and start looking at what is out there and looking at where you might fit. And one thing that's pretty interesting about that role is a role that has been on the rise for the past couple of years. It's interesting because the chief of staff in one company can look very different from the chief of staff in another company, and it's a role that applies across industries. And one way I like to think about it in terms of preparing for that role or whatever is basically just stacking your skills. Your interests also matter, your personality also matters, your temperament also matters. I don't want to make this video too long, so we can probably dig into the chief of staff role later, but that's just something I wanted to put on your radar. So again, generally speaking, now is a good time for generalists. Make sure that you are constantly researching, constantly staying abreast of everything that's going on with AI, how different roles in different industries and all of that are evolving. And don't be afraid to make a jump into another industry or into a different career if that is what you want to do, or if you feel stagnant wherever it is that you are. I like to say that we've got only one life. You've got only one shot, you've got only one chance at this life, and once it's over, it's over. So it's never late to make a switch, do something different. It can be scary, I understand, but if you're strategic about things, you can make that jump, make those choices that seem or that feel really difficult at first. So yeah, I want to say something really cheeky to the generalists, but yeah, it's our time to shine, guys.